Hello and welcome to another edition of the Crypto Club and Digital Assets Weekly Catch-Up on Zoom. It is Sunday the 11th of May 2025. Bitcoin's just gone through $104,000, but might then go down from there. We don't really know. So that might be something we'll end up talking about today on this session. However, we never really know. Some weeks we talk about blockchains, layer 1, layer 2 solutions, DeFi, NFTs, ICOs, STOs, TGEs, all sorts of three-letter acronyms, really. And if none of that makes any sense to you because you're new to this, then do stick around. There'll be something for everyone to learn. If you're more of an experienced person, then do join us. We'd welcome your contributions as well. We always talk about new projects, new developments, any things that are happening in the news as well. We sometimes expand through to the metaverse, to central bank digital currencies, and anything else of interest in this space, including the intersection of AI. So lots of topics, really. Anyway, we never really know which topics we're going to end up discussing. It really depends on the audience. So let's go and see who's going to join us today. Stuart, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Oh,
Good afternoon to you.
So anything new on your side at the moment?
Not really. I was contacted by a friend from England who asked me how easy is it to set up a meme coin?
Okay.
And he said relatively easy. He said he wants to set one up called the lunatic coin. And he said everyone's got a bit of lunatic in them.
Yeah.
So, send them a test and they can join and pay, $1 for the coin or what have you.
Okay. It's certainly got the novelty value, hasn't it?
Yeah,
So that could be quite good. So it
yeah,
makes a change from like an IQ coin or something like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's got to see how lunatic you are. You take a little test and then it grades you and gives you the chance to buy a coin to buy into the club of lunatics.
But does that mean that there are different grades of coin that you can aspire to?
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, because there's an upsell opportunity straight away, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
Hey, you think
most
I'm
people are
crazy?
curious, how much of a lunatic am I?
Excellent. And that, if you did it as a DAO, you could almost get the rest of the community to vote on it as well.
Yeah.
That sounds quite an interesting idea, that.
Yeah. He actually grew up in a mental hospital. His parents were nurses in mental hospital.
Okay.
And he's written a couple of books about the lunatic inside and things like that.
Hmm.
Um, so he knows a little bit about it. He said he believes everyone's got a bit of lunatic inside them. It's just that they're able to control it.
Okay. Yeah. Fascinating
Yeah.
idea. I know
Yeah.
certainly. Have you ever read the Psychopath test?
Mm. I've never read that.
Oh,
I've never done one.
the psychopath test is brilliant. I've forgotten the name of the author now, but he's really, really good. And
Yeah.
he describes various things, including the case of this criminal who broke a load of things, doing stuff, got captured, and thought, I
Mm.
know, I'll plead insanity in order to get a reduced or diminished sentence or whatever.
Right.
And so I think his lawyer went along with it, and he was expecting to get off with it, get the reduced sentence, or end up in an open prison.
Mhm.
And instead, he got sent to the maximum security prison in London, the name of which escapes me now. Broadstairs, or it's a very well-known prison anyway,
Right.
and it's maximum security for very, very dangerous people. And
Ooh.
apparently, the guy when he arrived was going, "Oh no, no, no! There's been some mistake." To which straight away the doctor said, "Yeah, they
Broadmoor.
always say that."
Yeah,
And he,
Broadmoor.
yeah, Broadmoor, that's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then it went on, and it was like, "Oh no, no, no! I just was pretending." And they said, "Yep, they normally say that as well." And he spent ages there trying to
Oh my
convince
God.
them that he was sane, and then realized that that as an approach was not going to work. And so
Right.
what he did instead, I think, was he eventually adapted to the idea of accepting that they were considering him insane, so that he was able to be cured over time. So,
Oh,
yeah, so it was a fascinating one. But I just love the whole. Oh no, no, there's been a mistake, and they said straight away. They all say that when they arrive here.
I, al- I like that.
A brilliant one. So, yeah, so
Yeah.
that was quite an interesting one. And it is a fascinating thing on a serious point though, because I've been into mental hospitals, not for any issue of my own, but
Oh, okay.
as a visitor. But I've ended
Hmm.
up in some secure units. And the thing I found fascinating was that you'd be talking to some of the staff, about different patients and this kind of thing. And then another member of staff would come over and explain to you that that person wasn't a member of staff.
Oh,
And you go, ah, okay. Yeah. So they are quite convincing in their
yes.
behavior. So fascinating stuff.
Hmm.
And of course, going back to the year 2000 as well, I was involved in that, and also a lot
The
of
Y2K.
Y2K. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of the prisons and mental health units uh, had extra staff on the 31st December 1999 for fear that the digital locks would open.
Oh my God.
So they were really worried that people might suddenly start wandering out and everything. So
Right.
interesting
That
stuff.
that was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen is if you know something about computers, there's a lot of fuss about nothing.
I did enough rewriting of code at the time to know
Mm.
it wasn't a fuss about nothing.
Really?
Yeah, there were lots
Oh,
of
because of the legacy code?
Yep, that's right. So lots of companies had used 2 digits for the century, and when you looked at what
Oh,
the
okay.
programs would do when it
Yeah.
flipped from 99 to 00,
Yeah.
it just wouldn't do it. So Dylan, hi, you
Right.
can put your camera back on if you want. Don't worry about your background. Do come and say hi. There we go.
Sure. Hey, so I just jump in, see if I can siphon off any new information about the markets.
Cool. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, there's lots going on at the moment, isn't there? I know Bitcoin smashed through 100K again.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yeah.
And Jeremy's algorithmic flags signaled that Ethereum was going to beat Bitcoin, and it did, which was nice to see finally some altcoins rallying.
Okay. Yeah. Well, in that case, you're probably going to be able to share more information with us than we will be able to with you. It sounds like you've got your finger on the pulse.
Maybe a bit, I've been tracking Bitcoin since about 2015, actually. That's when I first got into it. And I feel like I have a relatively intimate relationship with the crypto markets at the moment, although
Mhm.
some of the more regulatory stuff that's coming out now and the more institutional grade finance, like things that are happening, are slightly above my head.
Mhm.
But I'm doing everything I can to learn about that kind of stuff now. So,
Well,
maybe.
it's something as well that I genuinely believe. I mean, I started taking an interest in the space probably a similar kind of time as yourself, and I've actually seen several bubbles and several cycles, but each time I believe it's a different market.
Yeah,
Because of the nature of the participants. And so you're absolutely right that the current market is filled with institutional investors who are ramping up um, their funds and this kind of thing, which is very, very different to 20 years ago when it was a bunch of people just buying a load of crypto just because it was new and different type thing. And you've
yeah,
also got
definitely.
stuff as well that, in 2015, there was Bitcoin, and then 2016 kind of appeared Ethereum, but now you've got Solana, Cardano, also the other options as well.
Yeah,
So
all of these
again,
different explorations in protocols, essentially the development of blockchain in general.
yeah, and then you've got other things as well. You got the way they're used. So Stuart and I were chatting just before we joined about meme coins. So you think about the whole well, not so much DeFi space, but NFTs, meme coins, this kind of thing is something that wasn't around 10 years ago either. So this is where I do think the entire market, everyone's saying, oh, market's been around for 20 years now. It's different markets. It's bizarre. So I don't know what your thoughts are, Dylan, if you've been looking at it for this length of time as well.
Yeah, no, totally. I think you've hit it right on the head there. I think I've seen a lot of people starting to develop very serious businesses in the past few years that are built off of cryptocurrencies. So I was at a workshop for block shoals the other day, and it was led by a guy called Ermon, who created the first sort of paper that was peer reviewed on options trading
Mhm.
in the cryptocurrency space back in 2018. And he was an options trader for like 23 years with Credit Suisse and this kind of stuff. And he's gone full time now into developing Block Shoals, which is a company that has 50 so employees, and they just do analytics on cryptocurrency option trading. So it's very much it's a serious thing, do you know what I mean? Which means that there's serious work being done. Whereas, as you say, like going from back in the early cypherpunk days, it was just people playing around with this new tech. And then 2017, 2018, it was like early adopters, people who, were kind of living on a prayer sort of situation. And now it's like the institutional recognition, El Salvador, the
Mhm.
USA, this kind of stuff has really opened up the gates for it to be a world-changing thing. So I think we're sitting on the precipice of the potential change of the world's financial system, and
Mhm.
cryptocurrencies being a backbone to that as well.
You mean it's not a passing fad like we keep being told by the politicians?
Yeah, definitely. They probably just want to secure their old school assets, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
It's interesting as well. You're talking about options in the crypto markets because that's a particularly interesting area. I was actually involved in a project a while ago where we were looking at doing a hedging strategy using options. But one of the challenges was the sheer volatility of the marketplace. And
Yeah.
you'd find yourself, if you didn't quite get the settings right, you'd end up with like a margin call or you'd have to close the trade and that kind of thing. So yeah,
Yeah, so
it's definitely an area of interest.
yeah, sorry to speak over you, but the Ermon guy who runs Block Shoals actually said that back in those days when there was less liquidity available and when you were sort of being priced out by the fees on if you were going long or short on these option calls, there were actually pretty good times to find opportunities to like double bet against the market. I have a note here somewhere. He used very acute vernacular for what he experienced, but the funding rate of these things, and he was saying that there is a lot of lucrative money to be made by finding like um, markets that would essentially pay you for entering at the like opposite direction of the market
Hmm.
sentiment. And he was saying that he was making a lot of money just simply like placing a long and a short and paying himself off or something. I don't know much about options trading, and I definitely learned that at his workshop as well.
Certainly, it's interesting the idea of counterintuitive trades, as you say, going against the market, um, which from my trading experience is probably basically go the opposite of wherever I go, and that's probably going to be quite a good bet. Um, and it's interesting as well that you find with most retail speculators, because I don't think it's fair to call them investors because they're all speculating.
The speculators.
The reality is with them, and it's actually the same with shares. Funnily enough, I spoke to I think it was Charles Schwab a good few years ago now when we were talking about share trading. They said, yeah, 80% of our clients lose money,
Hmm.
um, but the 80% keep thinking they're about to be part of the 20%, and the 20% have just got on edge. That means they won't, and they keep making the money off the other 80%. So, and crypto is kind of similar.
Definitely.
Yeah,
I hear a lot of people speak about if it's a like a kind of like a zero sum game, like
it's not.
Mm.
It goes to zero.
Yeah.
Any cryptocurrency at the moment ultimately will end up at zero if you look at their tokenomics.
and you reckon that even about the bigger monolith chains like Ethereum,
Yes. Oh,
Bitcoin.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It will ultimately go to zero.
And that's where fundamentally, and I mean fundamentally, not as in fundamentals, when you look at the calculations that are used, I always get it from people who are traders who are saying, oh, yeah, yeah, well, you can, DCA on this, or you can um, look ahead. As long as it doesn't go to zero, you can use this strategy. And they all assume it'll never go to zero, but it might.
Yeah, totally. It depends where liquidity flows. Yeah, you're right.
Well, it's even more fundamental things that sometimes you might get like a black swan event that suddenly wipes something out. Choose a protocol of your choice. Something could suddenly transpire whereby someone figures out a way of exploiting it,
Hmm.
or they find there's a bug in it, or which is unlikely with it being open source these days, or people just lose interest in it. You know, if I look at what was top 10 crypto coins in 2016, Bitcoin and Ethereum are still there, but the other eight have probably gone away. In fact, it's funny, I was just thinking about all these logos here. I can't remember which year this was produced now, but I reckon a few of them are still around and quite a few of them aren't. Okay, I'm assessing an exam now. I can see Ripple, Ethereum, Bitcoin. It's like Bitcoin Cash, yeah, Dash, yeah. So some of them still around, but it's interesting when you look at the top 10 or the top 20. It is quite volatile still, and it does change over a year or so.
Yeah, definitely. And it'll be interesting to see. I'm not sure how many coins Satoshi still holds, right? But I don't know if that's a market, like a market affecting amount. Like one day could come out that actually, Satoshi is China,
Yeah,
right? Or
and,
Satoshi.
and, and this is it. That it could be as I say again, a black swan type event like that, where something suddenly reveal that just so totally destroys the market. That could happen. Stuart, what you're thinking about the other reasons why it might go to zero then? Because I think you might be thinking of other things.
No, no, no. I've looked at the tokenomics of all the major chains. That's one of the things that we did. Um, and ultimately, because they're constructed like fiat, they're in a inflationary or from an economic point of view, deflation is eventually going to take it to zero. So your inflation curve is going up and the value is going to zero.
Okay, so
None of them none of them readjust.
okay,
So you have a major problem there, and that's why Bitcoin can never be used for trading. It's just a store of investment that is based on good faith. There's no
okay.
intrinsic value in it.
Yeah, that's what my argument about fiat currency as well. Fiat currency
Yeah,
ultimately,
same.
its value is based on faith.
It's going to zero. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the US dollar on
I
it says,
look,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, but look
yes.
at Argentina, Venezuela, places like that, where they've got high inflation rates. Turkey, for example. Um, you know, the currency is worth less today than it was yesterday.
And in fairness as well, I remember having a conversation with someone who was a former senior Bank of England person, and this was in 2016, 2017, or whatever, and he was saying, I don't see the point of bitcoins and crypto because they're not backed by anything. And I said, okay, so you trust British pound because obviously Bank of England. He's like, oh yes, 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 yeah. Okay, what backs that? And he acknowledged that ultimately it was backed by the government, and that was what made the difference. I said,
But the
okay,
government's got no money.
precisely, and also um, government-supported fiat, as you say, disappears over time. Apparently, the average life of a fiat currency is 37 years.
Mhm.
Now, the US dollar, I think, is slightly longer than that because, if I remember correctly, the true US dollar only really started probably around the 1950s, I think. There was still some stuff
Mm,
about.
what, when they came off the gold standard, or
No, no,
Nixon
'cause
took them off the gold
no,
standard?
it was more in terms of up until then, and I may have the dates wildly out here, and it was actually 1930s. So it used to be that the dollar was still kind of like state run, as in individual states with individual state banks, and they only
Oh,
kind of consolidated, I thought, later.
the Fed was founded in, I think, 1920 something, around that.
I was going to say
The Federal
1930 something.
Reserve,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it was 20s, and that's got nothing to do with the government. That's private,
Mhm.
even though it's called the Federal Reserve.
Yep. Yeah.
And therein is the argument with Trump that they won't bring down the interest rate to make our goods cheaper and also to make debt repayment cheaper.
Mm.
So he has to force it by treasuries.
This is where I can recommend everyone to read the book Jeckyll Island.
This is the second time I've heard to read this book, actually.
There you go. The two books I recommend to everyone to read. Well, actually, there's three. One is Jeckyll Island. The second is Treasure Islands, which is actually about the City of London and how it affects international finance. And the third one is Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And if you read those three books, your life will change.
Is this to do with the monetary theory that's sort of doing rounds at the moment, where it's to do with the debt being a reflection of actual assets rather than a debt?
No, because it isn't. So Jeckyll Island is all about the formation of the Federal Reserve, as Stuart was saying, where a group of people got together and agreed to break up. I think, was it Chevron at the time?
Whatever it was, yeah.
It was
Standard Oil. Standard
Oil, yeah. Sorry, which was one of I've forgotten his name now. This is going bad. Who actually used
now
to
you're
run it
testing me
all?
on US.
Rockefeller?
No, it wasn't. Was it Rockefeller? Standard Oil.
Okay.
I mean, he was disgusting anyway, the things that he's done, and a lot of the things have been buried in history, and they certainly don't teach it in American schools.
Right. Yeah. So Dylan, for your benefit then, so Jeckyll Island was all about the formation of the Federal Reserve, which, exactly as Stuart says, everyone assumes that the Federal Reserve is US owned. It's interesting when you try and actually find who the ownership is of it. But it may not be who or what you think it is. The second book I mentioned, which was Treasure Islands, is about how the City of London is used for international trade, not necessarily in a nice way at times. And then
most people,
one,
I was going to say, most people don't realise that the City of London isn't part of England.
Yep.
It's a separate country.
Yeah, so I've been learning about this in the past few years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, London is the only city with three cities in it.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, I interrupted you there.
No. And it's got its own police force, and it's got everything else. Yeah. And
I'm adding these to my reading list. So
yeah.
The third one.
It's fascinating as well that the City of London, which is a separate city, also has its own unique representative in the Houses of Parliament. So there is, for those who are interested in the House of Commons in the UK, there is a position which is called the Remembrancer, I think is the title. And the Remembrancer is an unelected official from the City of London who sits at the side of the Speaker, apparently to kind of tap him on the shoulder or her on the shoulder every so often to remind them of the importance of the City of London. So there you go. There's your second book. Then the third book, which is not about economic theory, but is about what actually happens in the world, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, is absolutely brilliant because it talks about how the US influences countries generally by sending a consultant out who will do a study that will prove that they need a new massive investment in, say, hydroelectric power or infrastructure or whatever, and then they'll fund it. But all the funding actually goes to US companies to build it. And then the debt payment comes in, and that's where they get short, and that's where the US government typically has a lot of influence over the host nation. It's actually a very similar model to what China uses.
Right.
Yeah,
and
so
the International Monetary Fund,
Yep.
or International Misery Fund, as it's known.
I'm actually from Zimbabwe.
Ah, right, okay.
So I think this is innately in my DNA.
Excellent. Well, there you go. There's a homework for your new library that'll be set up.
I think we should also share with Dylan who doesn't look as though he's got any gray hair yet. But certainly in crypto, what you're going to find is that as it matures, you're going to get the Institute of Crypto, and you're going to have a certificate in order to get involved with it. And then there's mathematicians that are going to come along with, their mathematical formulas, and you've got to learn those in school before you can actually transact in crypto and become an expert in crypto. So you're on the cusp of it. You're probably going to look back when you've got gray hair and say, "Thank God I didn't have to take those exams." I was there at the almost beginning.
Or in 20 years' time, we'll all have central bank digital currencies where you don't need to worry about how it works. You've just got an app on your phone or whatever, and you won't actually realize that you've lost control of your life.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting one.
Lost control of your life or your wife? Well, it's about the same, isn't it?
There's a saying on the street, it's I trust you with my life, but not with my money or my wife.
Yeah.
Something like that, right? It's a new version.
I think for some it might be the other way around. Anyway,
wow, that's crazy.
That's a conversation for another day. Just been joined by FM, who we discovered last week. FN is actually an encrypted variation of JT. So JT, good evening to you.
Hey guys.
How's it going? What's
I like
new?
that encrypted variation.
Yeah. JT did actually used to have a really nice icon profile as well, which I was expecting him to mint it into an NFT at some point and put it on the market.
Yes, it's one designer that created for me actually. That one, it's quite cool.
Oh, looked really good. What's new then, JT? Anything happening? You've heard about anything beyond Bitcoin moving up over 100K again?
Let me think about it.
The one I did see was, I think it was Justin Sun, was making a comment the other day about the potential for dark stable coins, which was an interesting idea. So Dylan, I don't know if you follow stable coins at all. So,
yeah, somewhat. I was reading up today on the MiCA regulations for stable coins in Europe. Yeah.
You have just spoken the magic word that, just like I can't remember what the film is, but if you say Beetlejuice 3 times, the person appears.
Oh yes.
JT is your Micah person. As soon as you say Micah, he is in on it, definitely. And Stuart's laughing because he knows that's true as well. So.
But JT is so binary.
I really like Micah because, in my opinion, it's the only regulation at the moment that makes sense.
And it does facilitate things in Europe, doesn't it? Which is good.
It does. I mean, for any company that is registered in Europe, they can launch a token. Actually, anyone that can actually launch a stable coin, which is quite astonishing. There's banks launching stable coins in European Union at the moment because they meet all the MiFID II and all of those regulations already in place. They have them all. So for them to spin a stable coin is super easy as long as they have the know-how and experts to do that. Because from a regulatory point of view, they cover it.
But that's interesting as well. I did have a conversation with a central bank in Europe a few years ago now, where they were keen to understand how they could create their own cryptocurrency to have an alternative national currency. And I did say at the time, well, you're in the EU, you're all tied into the euro, that is your currency. And they said, yeah, we're just thinking ahead. So maybe we're now reaching that point. That's interesting.
I think also a lot of the original cryptocurrency ethos was about not having the centralized states getting power over the currencies in particular. So I think it depends what side of the coin you're on, excuse the pun. But if you want that centralized regulation, then yeah, it is very good. But if you are in it for the more like decentralized philosophies, it might be in contradiction to the whole reason you like blockchain.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I often describe a lot of the early crypto projects as being experiments. And one of them is an experiment as to whether decentralization works or not. And in some ways, if you look at it, if it's being adopted by the EU, then that's the antithesis of centralization. It might be highly distributed in that, the nodes and that spread out all across Europe, which makes it very resilient, but it's absolutely against this whole decentralized type thing. So I see we've been joined by 3 new people. Just want to say hi to them. We've got iPhone, whoever iPhone is, Mill, and then best till last, Elena. Welcome back.
Yeah.
Well, welcome back.
Yeah.
Good to see you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Dylan, so you were saying that you got into the crypto space around about 2015-ish or something. So that's over 10 years, which is reasonably long time for this space.
Yeah.
But I find it interesting. Anyone who thinks that they're a seasoned crypto person usually means 6 months to 12 months. So it's nice to hear someone who's been doing it more. But are you actively engaged in that space now on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so I think when I was younger, I managed to have a decent portfolio holding, but I ended up spending most of it when I moved to Cambridge and tried a stint in science. And back from 2018 to 2019, I was building it back up. In the earlier days, I didn't really have too much faith of it. And then when I saw Bitcoin like shoot past 3 grand, then into 20 grand, that's when I was like, okay, well, I'm going to take this serious. And since then, I've been like pretty much involved in it every single day. I have a few networks that are building out altcoins. They're trying with different things. I'm looking at a lot of tokenization of real world assets at the moment. I'm also working with Algo Dynamics and the R42 fund. I'm going to start managing their UK hedge fund operations very soon. So yeah, it is a major part of my life at the moment, for sure.
Okay, excellent. And I guess being in Cambridge, that means you're spending your money at Tatty's or at Baron of Beef.
Yeah, actually, I find myself at the orator very often now.
Okay, excellent. Sorry, I used to know Cambridge pretty well. So so you're one of the Jeremy crew then, basically.
Yeah, a newcomer for sure.
Excellent. That's all good.
So I'm actually interested to hear about you and why you. Yeah, I haven't met you before. This is a good time.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. And for anyone else listening as well. So I've been involved in crypto and blockchain since about 2014, 2015. I actually stepped into being a blockchain consultant from 2016 permanently, specializing in use cases in the insurance sector. So I've got a sweet spot around commercial insurance and supply chain. So I did a lot of stuff around that, and was a consultant, an educator, an advisor, have advised many blockchain companies, more often than not advising them to not get into crypto and stay with blockchain and don't go down the crypto route. Unfortunately, some of them ignored me and tried to do fundraisers through crypto, which killed them, which was exactly what I told them would happen, which is a real shame because some of them were actually really interesting supply chain projects. I still do some advisory stuff occasionally, more out of interest than hoping to support people. But I've realized for over 10 years, the conversation I used to get from people if I was speaking to like CEOs of companies and that would be, oh, what is it you do? I'll help companies with blockchain. Oh, what's a blockchain? And that it's at that point you realize that actually the thing the industry needs to do more of is basic education. But equally, if a blockchain solution is implemented correctly, you never need to know it is blockchain. Shouldn't need to know it. And this is my gripe when I keep hearing about companies presenting themselves as Web3 and blockchain and all this kind of thing. The consumer doesn't care. The consumer cares, is this easier? Is this cheaper? Is it faster? Is there something else? I don't care if it's Web 2 or 3, and I don't actually know what the difference is for a lot of them. And they don't care. But I'm in a minority view at times on there. But I see Stuart's smiling. So clearly, in the grey hair zone, we're together on that.
Absolutely. Absolutely on that one,
Yeah.
Gary.
So that's me. I don't know, Stuart, do you want to say a quick few words about your...
No, not if you're recording this, no. It might be used against me, especially by Jeremy.
That's fair. So Stuart is, I'll describe him as a blockchain and crypto evangelist who's been involved in multiple projects and is West Coast based. So brings an interesting insight because it's the morning for him and the evening for us. And then Elena, I don't know, Elena, do you want to say what you're up to at the moment or what your background is?
Yeah, well, um, my background is initially I was very interested and excited to learn about the blockchain technology and what NFTs are. And I was very, very lucky to discover, Gary, your blockchain Zoom meetings, which initially, yeah, because of that and because of you, I started my master's in metaverse in the University of Nicosia, which I successfully finished earlier this year. And it was...
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. That was another eye-opener of what our digital reality could be. And ever after that, I realized my interest kind of drifted off blockchain and cryptocurrencies. And I never, if only I had some financial background, I never did. So right now I'm concentrating and reading books and stuff and everything about Web3 and the metaverse.
Yeah. Excellent. Thanks for sharing. And the additional thing that Elena doesn't mention is that she is actually a leading expert at asking really good basic questions that no one else thinks of. So I used to love it when she used to first join us. And, you know, we'd be talking about all sorts of stuff or whatever. And she'd just ask such a fundamentally simple question. And it was like, oh, wow. You know, all of us just get so buried and so deep into this that we don't think about what the outside think about it. So I've always valued and appreciated Elena's comments.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
And for those who watch Columbo, the US detective series, you may be aware about how the character in that was this inspector who would be looking at a crime scene, speaking to the witnesses in there, and he'd come to his summation or whatever, and he'd be about to leave the room, and just as he's about to leave the room, he'd always say, just one last question. And that was always the revealing the killer. Elena is the female equivalent of that, where she throws, just one more thing. So good fun. I don't know, anyone else on the call who wants to come off mute and say who they are, or you're going to stay quiet today? They're all stunned by the expertise. So you've got a group of people here who have got a lot of experience. Definitely, if you want to know about blockchain technology and protocols and the benefits of them, Stuart's definitely a man. If you want to know about the metaverse, I don't know anyone better qualified now than Elena. And JT, if you want to know how to wind people up in various ways and share valuable insights, JT's your man because he's brilliant. And he's also got a lot of background and experience around kind of the cyber connection as well, shall we say. So an interesting person. And provides much entertainment at times, particularly when talking on to Jeremy. So
I can throw in my actual skill set is that I study artificial intelligence at Anglo-Ruskin University. So if anyone needs that or any information on that, then I guess I could be your man.
Which is the other thing as well, that AI and the intersection with blockchain and crypto is fascinating. I kind of hold the view now that you've got this new trifecta of AI, blockchain, and IoT. So with IoT, you're capturing the data. With blockchain, you're storing and securing the data. and with AI, you then put the analytics and the information layer on. I think combined, that's where the real opportunity is.
Except that no blockchain can handle the volume of an IoT system. No current blockchain.
Yeah, it certainly is a challenge, but it depends what the end point is.
What about minima?
Yeah, what about it?
They claim to handle IoT.
Yeah, if you get into a smart city, unless if they're doing it on an Ethereum base for smart contracts, they can't. I guarantee you that. It's mathematically impossible. What are they doing?
Isn't it obvious on IOTA, though? Because IOTA claims to have set up as a protocol for IoT.
The thing with IoT, Gary, is that everyone wants to keep their information in a silo.
Mm-hmm.
And smart cities, a lot of the smart cities in the China, Philippines area don't understand this, that, you know, I should be able to analyze the acidity of your washing machine output. I should know when the lights go out. I should know when people are going to work, starting their cars, opening the garages, so that I can set the traffic signals. If we've got an emergency, I can control that, I can predict it, and so on. No blockchain can handle that traffic, period.
But this is where it comes back to what the use case is, doesn't it? So you're right. If you've got using it for smart cities, it's going to be a challenge because you've got millions of devices potentially all pinging. But if you're tracking something like a ship, and all you're doing is tracking the vessel,
well, didn't the last blockchain fail at that?
Well, this is where
the ship had sailed before they even got it on the blockchain. Yes,
but that didn't fail because of the technology. It failed because of the validity of the business case. In some ways, I believe.
The fact that they were trying to shoehorn the business case into a piece of technology that shouldn't have been used.
Yeah.
And then the second thing with IoT is if you've got true IoT, I should own my own data. So now I need an exchange to say, okay, if you want my data, Google, you have to pay this much for it, for this part of the information. That has not been studied to a great extent because the infrastructure to collect the IoT data is not there. And the current blockchains do not do that.
But that is an interesting one.
You should look at minima, okay?
Yeah, I'm just
going to
okay.
They kind of
do they have a white paper?
They are quite advanced already, you know. There's automotive companies implementing and so on. So they implement edge. They implement consensus at the edge, okay, where the blocks are produced and validated by every device that is connected on the network. And that could be a car or could be anything else because it's very lightweight, you know. So they created a different way of doing proof of work, yeah, completely different from anything that you have seen around. I actually think they are onto something quite. Could be a very if it's not these. I haven't dived yet into their latest developments, but I think they are on the right track to be able to provide what you are saying, and I totally agree with you. You know, until now, blockchains haven't been able to deliver that speed. You know, it's the three rules that we know. You have to compromise somewhere, and usually they compromise on security to achieve scalability and speed, isn't it? So, I think they have a concept around cascading chains. Yeah. It's a structure that manages the growth of the blockchain by using they created something called super blocks. Yeah, you really need to look at that. I think it's a super
I'll look at it.
Interesting concept.
Yeah, I think is the white paper appearing on screen at the moment because I did share it, but I'm not sure if it's coming through.
Yeah. It takes a bit of reading, and I'll read that, well, not this afternoon, but tomorrow probably. Thank you, JT or FM.
And you know, the Adam is quite a nice guy, you know. So I know them for quite a while. They actually run a DePIN network as well.
Where are they based out of?
They're based in UK.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't know
Did
actually
you-
the company where the company's headquarters is,
Incorporated,
to be frank,
yeah.
but they are both British, you know.
won't hold that against them.
We can't take all
Are
the
they-
blame,
how,
you know.
Yeah, how funded are they? Where's their funding?
They did a good round last year. I don't know where they are now, to be honest, because I haven't been able to stay in touch with them for quite some time.
Yeah,
Well,
certainly haven't heard of them, but that's nothing special. I
It's a
don't hear
name
of a
I'd
lot of
heard,
things.
but not for a while.
Yeah, they're super interesting, you know. And I think it's this type of technology that actually can shape the future of smart cities. Because I agree with you, if you're going to have all of these devices, I've been saying this since 2017, 18, you know, we need to change the way we actually do consensus, you know, because it's pretty much impossible. Yeah, Hugo is super nice guy. Paddy is the brainiac. Very, very clever guy, you know.
And it's interesting, he was a former Bitcoin maxi as well, but has moved away from that. I found some people are just so embedded to Bitcoin that anything else is just not considered as an option. So, okay, that's interesting then. And interesting big brain holdings, got an investment in them. So, yeah. Well, worth checking out. Thanks for that, JC.
Thank
Well,
you, JP.
as is always the case, this is not investment advice.
But I should be saying things like that because we have the lawyers here. You do have, you don't get sued like we do.
Not yet.
You know, I think it was minimal that was doing something quite big with Volvo, you know, to embed into Volvo cars. I don't know how far they went with that, but super, super interesting.
Yeah, because I remember Volvo were doing some research around that ages ago.
Yeah, I actually met in one of the events that Minima did last year in Dubai.
Okay.
At the token, it was token last year, yeah. That I think it was token, I can't remember, but it was an event where they brought the head of a blockchain for Volvo, yeah, and they were speaking about what they were doing together.
So it's interesting because several years ago, Volvo were working on a blockchain project, which was all to do with supply chain, because they realized at the time they were moving more and more into electric vehicles. And so there's a lot of cobalt consumption and rare earth metals. So they actually did a project, in fact, I've just found it, where they were doing like supply chain using blockchain, but they did it with Oracle and a company, Circular, who doesn't sound familiar. But it's interesting that it looks like it's one of these big scale projects, a bit like what we were talking about with IBM and Hyperledger and that. So I wonder then if Minima is like version 2 of Volvo looking at blockchain technology then. So, because I've seen it with a few companies who've done experiments, have proved that it doesn't suit them at that stage and then come back and revisit. So, we'll see on that. Thanks for sharing. So we've got 5 minutes left before we finish off for the day. See, JT's using his extra effective, super sensitive screen blocking ability on his camera, just sticking his finger over. He never wants to say hello, does he? Yeah. No, he's given up on that.
No, man, I kind of didn't shave for a week. I don't want to really look.
Okay, we don't want to look at that.
You look like that, but that's your normal style.
Exactly. Yeah.
Can you put your finger on there again? I'd like to scan it.
You can't.
Actually, that is an interesting thing which relates to a piece of news that I noticed during the week, which was around, funnily enough, I think JT raised this again last week, which is about eyeball scanning with WorldCoin, because it was curious about how, again, WorldCoin is still trying to scan people's eyeballs in return for crypto. But it was interesting that today there seems to be like an increasing skepticism and concern about its use. So I just found that interesting that they're trying to do this project where you scan your eyeball and you get crypto in return, and then you use
I
it
actually
as
took part in this. I have had
So-
my eyeballs scanned.
okay. So you're willing to give
You're
away your
doomed.
identity.
It's the privacy paradox, right?
Yep.
So a little bit of money there. It flew me out to Berlin and then paid for the trip, so
Okay.
I'm not too annoyed.
But it does come back. It's this whole trade-off between privacy and the benefit you get from not having privacy, and everyone tends to be willing to compromise privacy until they've lost it. So yeah, definitely an interesting one. But how did you find the experience then, Dylan? Was it just, turn up, scan your eyeball, here's some crypto?
Yeah, well, quite literally, the UK have still got some heavy regulations around it because of
Mhm.
data and privacy. So, yeah, I actually had to go out to Berlin to get it done. But I was collecting the tokens from them for quite a while, and this was during the 2021 rally. And it just got to a point where it was like, well, actually, it's cheaper to fly to Berlin than the value of these tokens. So, yeah, but they had the store like in top form. It looked like something almost Apple would launch. I think for the average person, the average retail investor, it's a good experience, I think, in general. And the World app actually has a lot of functionality and a lot of things going on in there. And I was brought into it because of how potentially AI was going to take a lot of jobs. And I've always been interested in universal basic incomes and these kind of protocols. So I kind of saw it as one of the first that had like large institutional backing to actually bring something like this to the world. So I was quite eager to take part in it, to be fair.
Okay.
I think you made a big mistake, okay? Because there's one thing that is truly, truly unique is your eye, okay? Your eyes. So in future, the way things are going, all the biometrics are going to be really eye scan wherever you go, okay? Now you are not on a government. Being on a government database can be quite challenged, in terms of privacy, many other things. But again, they take good care, or they try to take good care of your data and try to protect it, especially anything that is involved with passports, identity, and so on. Okay, there's an extra layer of security. Now, you scan your eyes for a private company, yeah. Your eyes now are on several databases. Okay, I'm telling you now. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if there's a crack as well, then it's going to be on the dark web.
Yeah.
So imagine that in the future, wherever you go, being to the bank, cash out, whatever it is, you have to use your eyes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
Orwellian.
it's a big mistake. I warn everyone to not do it when they came out, because I think it is. For now, it's okay, yeah. But I think the way the world is going in the future could be a huge problem, really huge problem.
And I remember being on a radio program as well. In fact, from Ireland. So Elena probably knows the presenter. And we were talking about privacy and about the trade-off of privacy and what it means. And the presenter was asking me, was there a risk of us, going too far? And I said it was already too late. We've already crossed the Rubicon, as it's called. That we've already compromised our privacy. We no longer control it. But folks, as is always the case with these things, just as we get on to the interesting stuff, it's time to go. So it's on the hour. So we've been going through some really interesting stuff. So just thank everyone as always, really. Stuart, Lena, JT, Dylan, people who joined and went. Thanks for joining. Thanks for sharing your backgrounds, your knowledge, your insights. Hope everyone enjoyed it. Hopefully see some or all of you again next week.
Yeah, thank you for your time. Cheers.
No worries. Cheers now.
Thank you very
Bye
much.
for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.